Can a GTX 1070 Ti conquer Elden Ring Nightreign? Greetings, Tarnished. We are putting the Nvidia GTX 1070 Ti to the ultimate test in the Elden Ring Nightreign. This GPU launched in November 2017 with an MSRP of $149. It featured 2,432 CUDA cores and 8GB of GDDR5 VRAM. Today, you can expect to find a used one for roughly around $100 to $250. Impressively, the GTX 1070 non-Ti with 8GB VRAM is actually listed as the recommended GPU for Elden Ring Nightreign, suggesting our 1070 Ti should have a fighting chance. The game itself requires Windows 10 or 11, an Intel Core i5 11500 or AMD Ryzen 5 5600, and 16GB of RAM, plus 30GB of storage. We will be testing Elden Ring Nightreign from its lowest to its maximum graphical settings on both a 1080p resolution and 4K resolution. Our goal is to meticulously examine the performance at each step, determine what frame rates to expect, and ultimately pinpoint the very best settings to ensure your survival in this new brutal chapter of the lands between. Will the GTX 1070 Ti still stand tall, or will it finally fall? Let us find out, shall we? Alright, brave Tarnish, let us begin the testing. We started the testing at 1080p low settings and we saw anywhere between 45 to 60 FPS, averaging around 50 FPS. A smooth responsive experience, pushing 8 to 4K, it dropped to 30 to 45 FPS, also averaging 37 FPS. While numerically lower, the core gameplay remains surprisingly crisp and reactive, crucial for combat. However, the low tells a story. 1% low of 21 FPS at 1080p and 17 FPS at 4K mean occasional stutters. More critically, the 0.1% low of 9 FPS at 1080p and a jarring 1% at 4K indicate moments of significant freeze. These are the telltale signs of that CPU bottleneck, where your processor momentarily can't keep pace. Despite these occasional hitches and the simple visuals, the gameplay at low settings feels remarkably responsive and playable, even on a 4K display. The 1070 Ti, though showing its age, delivers a surprising agile experience. At 1080p medium settings, the card wages a noble battle. Frame rates were between 40 to 55 FPS with an average of 51 FPS. A flicker of hope. Yet beneath the surface lies instability. The 1% lows sank to 21 FPS and the dreaded 0.1% lows deceased to 9, revealing cracks in the illusion of smoothness. In open fields and quiet ruins, all is well, but when the storm breaks, the stutter comes. At 4K, the tides turn. With only 29 to 35 FPS to wield, the warrior stumbles. An average of 30 FPS tells a tale of endurance, not dominance. Again, 1% lows falls to 19 and 0.1% lows to a mere 9 FPS, where time itself seems to hitch and tremble. The world is still beautiful, but it moves like molasses in a dream, and behind it all, an unseen hand may guide the struggle. The i7-6700K, aged like the GPU itself, may now be a bottleneck. Its power not forgotten, but no longer unmatched. Elden Ring demands more, not only of the GPU, but of every core and thread in your machine. Visually, medium settings offers a grand vision of the lands between. Gone are the flat plains of low settings, now replaced with the denser shadows, richer lights, and detailed etched in every stone and branch. But it's such. And so, the warrior ventures deeper from the realms of balance into the lands of ambition. High settings, a path reserved for those who crave glory, yet tread dangerously close to ruin. The GTX 1070 Ti, scarred by years of battle, presses on, but its steps grows heavy. At 1080p, the card summons 30 to 45 FPS with an average of 44 FPS, enough to endure but never to dominate. There is fluidity, but it sways like a frame in the wind. 1% lows dips to 22 FPS and 0.1% lows to 10, whispering of instability. The lines between become unpredictable, not unplayable, but no longer reliable. At 4K, the burden becomes almost unbearable. 25 to 28 FPS is all that remains, with a trembling average of 27 FPS. Each frame is a struggle, each moment a compromise. 1% lows falls to 15 FPS and 0.1% lows collapse to just 5. The warrior can see the beauty before them, but it moves like a fading memory. And once more, the bottleneck lurks in the shadow. The i7-6700K, once a noble ally, may now shackle the full might of the GPU, especially in the chaos of this new realm. It is not weakness, it is time's toll. Visually, the game reveals its finest form yet. Shadows deepen, foliage thickens, and the light of the earth tree bathes the world in surreal brilliance. But this level of beauty is a double-edged blade. Performance is nearly halved compared to medium, and the sacrifice is not easily ignored. For those who seek spectacle over speed, high settings offers a glimpse of majesty, but for the wandering tarnish looking to survive, not just admire, this path may be too steep. At 1080p max, the frame rate dances between 20 and 48 FPS, averaging 42 FPS. Not unplayable, but volatile. In quiet moments, the world feels fluid. In battle, it lurches. The 1% lows drops to 20 FPS and the 0.1% low settle at 10 FPS, pulling the player out of the moment, if only briefly. At 4K, the strain grows heavier still. Frame rates hover around 20 to 28 FPS with an average of 25 FPS. 1% low hits 16 and 0.1% lows falls to 9 FPS. The games become a visual masterpiece, but the smoothness falters, replaced with a cinematic, slower rhythm. For exploration, acceptable. For combat, risky. And yet, a strange shift occurs. Despite the heavier GPU load, maximum settings relieve some pressure from the CPU, allowing the system to breathe differently. It's as if the GPU has taken on the full burden of rendering this grand version, giving the aging i7-6700K a moment of reprieve. But make no mistakes, maximum settings deliver the best visuals ELDEN Ring Nightreign has to offer. Every tree, cloud, and ruin is rendered in the haunting beauty, but it comes with the worst performance we've seen across all settings. For those chasing screenshots and spectacle, it is a glorious part, but for the tarnish seeking balance and control, this final trial may be too much to bear. In the end, the GTX 1070 Ti proves it still has some fight left in it, though not without scars. Across all settings, it managed to keep ELDEN Ring Nightreign playable, but with noticeable caveats that grows sharper the higher you climb. For balanced performance and solid visuals, medium at 1080p is the sweet spot. It offers decent graphical fidelity while keeping frame rates high enough for reactive gameplay. Tinker with shadows and post-processing to gain extra fluidity if needed. Ultimately, the GTX 1070 Ti stands tall in the lands between, not as a champion of speed, but as a weathered knight still capable of holding ground in 2025. Just don't expect miracles. This card has gifts, not grace.